Part 1. Now I yield up myself to your advice, and enter into a new canoe, and do engage to God hereafter. Pennacook Sachem Wanalancet, upon his conversion to Christianity in 1674. Chapter 1. Cochecho, New Hampshire, early September, 1676. The late summer air wore the perfume of wild honeysuckle and carried the steady splashing rhythm of nearby Cochecho Falls to Grace Hampton's ears as she sat beneath a locust tree. She was entranced by the mother-of-pearl button suspended on a length of tow linen, a gift from her late father and her most prized possession. She would twirl the button on its tether until it became a hypnotic blur. She carried the toy everywhere, and when she wasn't playing with it, she always wound the string securely around her wrist so that the button would easily drop into her palm. Around her, other children played while the adults conversed about things that didn't interest a 9-year-old girl. Major Richard Waldron, proprietor of the town's mill and trading post, who had come to collect several hundred refugee Wampanoag Indians who had fled the Commonwealth during recent fighting. The townspeople of Cochecho called the Wampanoags strange Indians to distinguish them from the local Pennacook tribe, who had lived peaceably with the whites for many years under the leadership of Wanalancet. The sachem of the Pennacooks had converted to Christianity and was thus called a praying Indian. Grace knew the adults were concerned about the number of Wampanoags who entered the town, and vaguely assumed that was what Major Waldron and his guests Captains Sill and Hawthorne were discussing so intently. Waldron entertained his guests with a feast of roast pig, followed by several games. Finding a shady spot beneath a dying locust tree, Grace unwound her whirligig from her wrist and sent the button twirling. Whiz, whiz, whiz. The toy was the last remnant of her former life. Her parents had been killed by Indians 3 years before, when she was only 6, and her sister Alice was 13. The girls survived the attack because they had been picking ears of corn in the field. They heard the whoops and cries of the Indians, and watched in horror as their home was set ablaze. Terrified, they listened to their mother's screams as they huddled among the cornstalks, praying they wouldn't be discovered. They hid for hours until all was quiet and nothing was left of their home but a pile of smoldering ash. Alice wouldn't allow Grace to go near the ruins. Instead, she had seized her little sister's hand and fled to the nearest neighbor's garrison. The neighbors sent word to their next of kin, Captain John Hurd, who immediately sent for his cousin's daughters to come live with them in Cochecho. The transition had been difficult, but after 3 years, Grace was beginning to adjust to her new life. Nightmares in which she heard the Indians' war whoops and her parents' terrified cries, though less frequent, still tormented her from time to time. She was starting to forget what her parents looked like, and that frightened her. She knew she had her father's coloration, ruddy, with a colony of freckles so plentiful they sometimes blended together. Her hair was as red as an autumn leaf. Errant curls often sprung rebelliously from beneath her coif, and she was always being told to tuck them in. Her nose was just a stub. Worse yet were her eyes, which were sky blue, but rimmed with brown. In another face they could be considered alluring, but in Grace's situation they were small and closely set, which seemed to put people off. Her sister Alice, however, was budding into feminine loveliness. At 16, her heart-shaped face had lost its childish features, and she was often mistaken for being several years older. Alice had her mother's sparkling violet eyes, delicate nose, and mild disposition. She kept her nut-brown hair neatly hidden beneath her coif without any escaping strands to ruin her grown-up appearance. Alice was content to churn butter and spin flax, which endeared her to the Hurd household. Grace, on the other hand, was too restless, and found herself unable to focus on one tedious chore for very long, another trait she had inherited from her father. The whirligig's soft music always brought her parents to mind, and her throat thickened as she remembered her loss.
to keep listening to this audiobook. I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.